Alright, welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today we are going over some more Final Fantasy Tactics Ivalice Chronicles information. Now, we just had a Famitsu article released, and then Square Enix also released their own article giving us more details on the game. Now, that Famitsu article is in Japanese, so you're going to have to use something like Google Translate to read it, and those can always be hit or miss, so take those articles with a grain of salt if you are translating it. But wasting no time, what do these articles, what have they clarified for us as far as the Ivalice Chronicles? Because I think a big question everybody's had is, War of the Lions, that PSP version, and I guess the Android version as well, or iOS, is that content coming to us in Ivalice Chronicles? And I would say the community's been a little mixed on it. Some people saying yes, some people saying no. There have been a lot of hints that no, it is not coming. And we can confirm now that the War of the Lions content, that PSP version, is not coming to Ivalice Chronicles. That means no Dark Knight, no Onion Knight, no Balthier, no Luso, none of the Rendezvous, the co-op content. That will not be in the game. And I kind of start to think that that was the case because on all of the websites, when it lists how many players are allowed to play this game, as far as the co-op is concerned, it always listed one player or single player. And I don't know of how many instances where a game has been listed and put up and it puts only, single player and then later changes it to some sort of multiplayer. I've never seen that. So that was the first inkling I had that, hey, actually that War of the Lions content, I don't think it's coming. Now for the Dark Knight and Onion Knight, they did list in the description of Ivalice Chronicles that you can play over 20 unique jobs, and that 20 plus kind of gave a, hope that, okay, there's the 20 base PS1 jobs, and then saying 20 plus meant that, okay, maybe Dark Knight, Onion Knight are going to be slated in there. Well, that's not the case. Turns out that 20 plus is just talking about the unique job. Something like Agrias is a Holy Knight, Mustadio is an engineer. So in that description, they were indeed referencing those unique jobs, not Dark Knight, not Onion Knight. Some other tidbits we got there are going to be 3 difficulties modes. There's going to basically be an easy mode, a standard mode, and a tactical mode, which is like a hard mode. They do say that tactical mode, they feel like sometimes it's going to feel unfair, but we'll have to see how difficult that is. That is definitely the mode I'm going to be playing on. And the last major bit of information I think we got from this was there's going to be more voice lines and dialogue from somebody like Agrias and Sid, who once they join your party in the story, they really don't have a lot to say. So kind of similar to Tactics Ogre Reborn, where if you bring characters to an encounter, they will talk to the enemies or with each other. And so we're going to get more dialogue like that. So all that has been voice acted, in addition to the chants, the PS1 chants. Those are in the game as well, and those are going to be voice acted, so that's a big thumbs up. And then some last little tidbits from the article. The Genji gloves that you could steal in the PS1, you can no longer steal them. Those were never meant to be stolen, so they don't want players sitting there trying to steal them with a very, very low percentage. They also have gone back and fixed some bugs with the PS1, the very classic version that they're doing. So if you're thinking about doing that JP scroll glitch, that probably won't work anymore. And then they just clarified that they made sure to basically update and touch up some of the spell effects and sound effects. As far as the original music, that hasn't been re-recorded or anything like that, but it has been, I guess, enhanced for modern systems, so that's good to know. And I think the last important detail that I got from these articles, the roster size for the enhanced version, that's being bumped up to 50. In the original version, I think it was 16, something like that. You didn't have a very large roster size. So now with 50, just think about it. You're gonna have your characters, all the main characters, the unique characters, and then you're going to have Bako and his 1,000 birds that he spawns magically out of thin air. So that'll be fun. I'm wondering if they'll add a little toggle for him to say, hey, stop hatching a bunch of eggs. That'd be great. Thanks. So that's all the information. What do I feel about all this new stuff coming out? Well, losing Dark Knight and Onion Knight and then Balthier and stuff, kind of a bummer. Not a deal breaker though. In reality, getting Dark Knight, it's a big grind. By the time you get Dark Knight, I would say organically, you're in the end game. Final Fantasy Tactics doesn't have a very large end game, so not that important, I guess. And if you do say grind for getting Dark Knight, say very early on, like chapter 2 or 3 or something like that, you're basically going to out-level the game anyways and make it very easy. So Dark Knight is always kind of a weird thing. I think he was really meant for, or that job was really meant for the co-op content. And we're not getting that, unfortunately. So I am bummed out about the co-op content, not necessarily about losing, Dark Knight. I would like Dark Knight, don't get me wrong. But if it being gone, I'm like, okay. The real bummer is losing out on the co-op, the Rendezvous content, because I thought some of that was very fun. Kind of add a little bit more replayability because you got like random rewards like through a chest system. So kind of bummed that's actually gone and not coming to the game. I know a lot of people are probably going to be disappointed about, again, losing those 2 jobs. And before I forget, the difficulty modes, the hard mode, are they going to put a level scaling in the game, like a world scaling, kind of like how they have tactics in Tactics Ogre Reborn, where you are hard capped on a level until you progress the story to keep you from out leveling, you know, the base content? Or are the missions, the humanoids in the missions, are they going to scale up with whatever level your highest level character is? Because random encounters, those monsters, they do scale up with your highest level character, but the story missions, those are at a set level. So I'm interested to see what they do with the enhanced version as far as the level scaling. They did mention some things like, hey, we don't want you grinding for like, or doing like the same thing for those Genji gloves, and they talk about Tactics Ogre Reborn. But for those of you who have played Tactics Ogre Reborn, there are some very grindy late game spells to get in that game that have very low drop chances that you have to like use the chariot system over and over again to get that drop. So that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, because like they kept that grindiness in Tactics Ogre, but then they don't want to be able to like have people sitting there trying to steal the gloves at a very low percentage. So a little bit of a weird one there. Maybe that's a translation error. But again, because it's Google Translate, I don't want to nitpick. It's really not that big of a deal at the end of the day. Now, I will say, those of you who are getting the game on PC, you are probably in luck, because the Final Fantasy Tactics, the Hactics community, the modding community, they do amazing work with the emulators and basically those versions of Final Fantasy Tactics. So like taking the classic PS1 version and putting all the War of the Lions content in it and making that co-op content soloable or solo friendly, and adding even more missions on top of that. So you can bet your ass that the modding community is going to take the Steam version, the PC version, and they probably will be able to add in those old jobs. So if you're debating on which system to get it on and you really care about the War of the Lions stuff, I maybe get it on the Steam version instead. Would I rather that content be officially put in the game by the original developers? Yes, I think that's always the case. I don't think it's always ideal to have like the modding community have to fix a product. It's kind of like why I never really get on board with Bethesda games for the most part, because, you know, the modders do a lot of the heavy lifting. But I have no doubt that the Hactics community will basically get their hands all over this game and do all sorts of fun stuff, making this game. I already consider Final Fantasy Tactics like a forever game. It's very easy to replay over and over and over again. I basically play it every year. So I have no doubt that the modding community is going to get a hold of this and just basically create endless content for this game. Hopefully the PC version here is very easy to break into, so they don't have a hard time doing that. And I'm looking forward to basically what they can do with the enhanced version of this game. Anyways, that's the video. I kind of wanted to wait until we had more concrete information to talk about Final Fantasy Tactics some more. I am working on, in the background, basically making build videos. I think the first one I'm going to do is a night before the game is launched. That way, if you maybe need like an update or a refresher on the game and maybe what builds really work, that'll be for that. So you can just kind of like hit the ground running with the game, because there is a lot of grind in the game, but you can cut a lot of that if you basically plan out a character route as far as like what skills you want to pick up, and you can get builds going really quickly in the game, like chapter 1. So that's what those videos are going to be for. And of course, when the game comes out, I'll do updated builds. Then obviously with video captured from the actual enhanced version. These pre-ones will just be off of DuckStation, the emulator for the PS1, but that should translate to the release of the game pretty well anyways. But anyways, yes, that's the video. If you made it this far, thank you very much. Consider hitting that like and subscribe button if you're a Final Fantasy Tactics fan, or consider checking out the game. Again, we're going to be covering on this channel because it's one of my favorite games. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. Peace and take care.